Hi, it's Louise at Spiral Bright Insight. If you're new to my channel, I'm a galactic and an intuitive astrologer, and I want to take time today to talk about Venus. Now, for anyone who has been following my content, some of the recent videos that I've shared, you may have heard me confess or admit to the fact that Venus is one of the very few archetypes in astrology that I have always found it really hard to connect to and to resonate with. And it's been interesting because Venus has clearly decided that now is the time for me to reconnect with her. And I feel like I've been on a really deep dive into her archetype, her energy, exploring her within my own chart. And needless to say, all the clients whose charts I've been working on sort of in this interim period have all had very strong sort of associations and connections to my own placement. So, and that is something that just happens. I think the universe really is in control of things much more than perhaps we might want to give it credit. So yeah, the big sort of thing that I want to, the reason I want to talk about Venus today, obviously in addition to the fact that she has been very present in my own experience over the past couple of weeks, and I'm sure she will continue to be, is because she is meeting with the sun tomorrow. So I'm recording this on Saturday the 22nd of March. Tomorrow, 23rd, she is going to meet with the sun. Now Venus is still in retrograde motion, and she and the sun are meeting at 2 degrees of Aries. Now this Kazemi is going to create what is described as what is known as a Venus Starpoint. Now, again, I have been on a deep dive into Venus, into her patterns, into her archetype, what she represents, and I have been learning or trying to learn about the Venus Starpoints and the fact that she has an 8-year cycle, and within that 8 years, she will meet the sun a number of 10 times in total. 5 of those times are when she is in retrograde motion. And as she moves around the sun, the pattern that she creates with the earth, the sun, and her movement creates this beautiful geometrical pattern which looks like a rose, but it's effectively it creates 5 petals, and each of these petals is described as a star point. Now she is creating a star point in the sign of Aries this weekend, which means that she is going to start to teach us about some of the Aries themes as we move through this next part of her cycle. Now, if you want to kind of understand more about Venus Starpoint and her pattern and how she moves, I would recommend looking up Ariel Gutman, but also Louise Eddington, who is the Cosmic Owl. She also has a lot of great content, and I know she does a course about Venus Starpoint. And so, yeah, they are really good resources, and I've been sort of looking at their work and can recommend them if you want to go further. But I think, you know, there is a sense at the moment that there is a lot of information coming in, and there are a lot of sort of activations taking place. You know, we are in the middle of a very, very powerful eclipse season. We've just had the equinox. You know, there is a lot of stuff going on, you know, huge purging, huge amounts of activations taking place. And you know, for me personally, I feel like I'm just getting one new thing after the other, and I'm just like, oh my goodness, it's incredible. I'm like feeling lit up like never before. I feel, you know, my channel is a lot clearer. I'm getting huge amounts of insight and inspiration, but it's a lot. It is overwhelming because there is just so much to learn, so much to dive into. And I think part of this process and part of the reason why this is happening to me, and again, I share my own perspective in these videos, but I kind of trust that what I'm sharing is going to resonate with, you know, at least one of you, if not more. And you will be drawn to my channel, my content, because, you know, I'm bringing through something that can support you or maybe open up a new level of insight for you. The kind of lesson or the message that I'm getting through is that we are moving away from the time when we need to understand everything using our minds, when everything has to be sort of intellectual. when everything needs to be processed through the mind, through the brain, through the point of understanding. We are moving into a time when a lot of the wisdom and the information is going to be processed at a very physical level within the body, and particularly within the heart center. So this desire or this need to know and to understand everything, it's almost like being sort of removed from my field, because I'm starting to see that it's not always about understanding it from an intellectual sort of mind perspective. So I hope that helps someone. It certainly is helping me, because I can find it frustrating sometimes when I just want to understand everything and get everything, and there's just so much information. I'm like, oh, how this is going to take months to study, and I just don't have months. So I think for me it's about just accepting that, I don't have to know everything, but it's about getting the essence and the energy of what is coming through. That is the important thing. Now, as Venus and the Sun meet at 2 degrees of Aries, and this happens 5 times over an 8-year period, she will turn into, or metamorphosis into, a morning star. So she's been an evening star, and her retrograde period is always a marker. Halfway through the retrograde, she will meet the Sun, she will create the Venus Starpoint, and normally in her cycle she will disappear for a number of days or weeks, depending on how the cycle is going, and she will disappear. And essentially it's described as Venus going into the underworld, sort of work with her shadow, and then once she has done that, she rises again, renewed, reborn, and she turns into the morning star. Now, there is an anomaly this year, and it said again, I was trying to research it, find out as much as I could, and this does happen, but it's not a regular occurrence. So this year she is not going to disappear. She will set as an evening star and she will rise as a morning star almost simultaneously. So there is no period where we do not have Venus shining in our skies, and that to me felt really, really poignant, really pertinent, really powerful, because the light of Venus, which represents our ability to love ourselves, our ability to value ourselves. Venus is the heart. She is about love. She is the goddess. She is about beauty, magnetism, point of attraction, creativity. And the fact that she is not going to go out during this period that we're going through, which is just so momentous in terms of all the energies that we are sort of navigating, just feels really significant, and that her light is going to shine for us, literally holding space for us and lighting up our heart center as we move through the rest of the eclipse portal, as we work through Aries season with the Sun already in Aries season, as Neptune makes this huge ingress into Aries, completes the end of the cycle, starts a new one, and then with everything else that we have got coming up. So she is about to transform into a morning star, and morning star Venus is very much linked to the spiritual warrior. She is if we were to think of Aphrodite as the evening star Venus, it is Pallas Athena that steps forward when she is showing herself as a morning star. And Pallas Athena, obviously the goddess of wisdom and knowledge, very much a warrior goddess. So Venus as a morning star is possibly more feisty. She has certainly got a lot of work to do. She's very eager, she's very strategic, she's quite impulsive, she's spontaneous. And the fact that she is transforming into a morning star in the sign of Aries just adds extra gravitas to that, because Aries is the warrior, Aries is the pioneer. This is about action. And as Venus moves retrograde through Aries, and she's going to move to 0 degrees Aries, then she's going to go back into Pisces. And as she is in Aries, being reborn as this morning star, she is absolutely taking on all the qualities of the warrior goddess, the leader. She is really exploring her own value, her own strength, her own courage, her ability to be independent, to be sovereign. And for me, this is about Venus really inviting us to go in and to explore deep within the self, to connect with our inner flame, with that spark of light that comes from Aries, to really connect with our inner beauty and what to really get to grips with, how amazing we are, how valuable we are, how to build on our self-worth, to really get to know who we are at a very deep level, and also to really have the courage and the bravery to shine our light, to stand in our own truth, in our own power, to really say, okay, this is me, and to have no apology about being who you are, about standing in your authenticity, your pure self, not trying to be anything else, not with any masks or veils. And I think the biggest thing here is that the veils and the masks that are being removed at this time are possibly veils and masks that we have either put there, or that we're hiding the true self from ourselves, because we can. I think that the truth is that so many of us hide our true self, and often we're aware that we're hiding parts of ourselves from other people because we don't want them to see who we are. We don't want to be rejected. We fear that they will judge us. We fear that they won't like us, that somehow they'll reject us or abandon us. But actually, I think one of the big things for me that has been coming through is the fact that we have so many veils and masks that we actually hide ourselves from ourselves. So we prevent ourselves from seeing who we truly are. And as Venus moves through this beautiful retrograde period, she forms this star point with the sun. She starts a new cycle. This is about really getting to know who we are at a very new level. And this is about the raw truth of who we are. There is going to be no more hiding from the self. And as we sort of step out and embrace and accept and start to integrate all of who we are, we're then going to project that out into our outer world, and we will see how our outer world starts to shift to reflect that back. So this is going to be, the feeling I'm getting is there is just so much huge potential to really start to reclaim our worth. If we've had low self-esteem, if we've had low self-worth, if we've had, a lack of unconditional love for the self, then this is the time when all that starts to really shift. And we are coming in with this new cycle, we're coming into a new understanding of who we are and the truth of who we are. And the fact that Venus is not hiding, she is not going into the underworld, she's not going to spend this time hidden, is kind of like validation of that, because Venus has got the courage to shine as she is, and she's really trying to get us to feel that and to harness that and to step into that too. She already knows who she is. She's done the shadow work. She doesn't have to do the shadow work this time, and she's inviting us to follow her lead in so many ways, with her moving through the final or the very early degrees of Aries in this retrograde. So as we start to really accept ourselves for who we are, that is going to have a really beautiful knock-on effect for our relationships, because really to have a healthy relationship with anybody, it has to start with having a healthy relationship with the self. And the other thing that is coming through loud and clear to me is that as Venus moves back through Aries into Pisces, and Mercury is following her, because Mercury is following a very similar path at the same time in the middle of this eclipse corridor. As Venus moves back, she is going to start to reclaim, she's seeking to reclaim all the lost parts of the self, the parts of the self that have been denied, that have been hidden, that have been repressed, that have been almost disconnected or removed or cut off from the self. So this is a really huge time of soul retrieval, and this is what I feel she's ultimately doing as she moves back into the beginning degrees of Aries and then back into Pisces, which is going to feel very, very karmic. I'll come on to that in a second. But really, she is, if there are any parts of you that you have either given away to somebody or have been held by someone or taken by someone that, have been locked away and that have not been accessible, this is going to change. And I feel that as we start to reclaim lost parts of ourselves or hidden parts or denied parts of ourselves, that is when we really start to come into our power, because we can start to feel whole again. And I think a big problem, and this doesn't just apply to now, but I see it particularly strong at this time, is, so many people are struggling because they feel they are aware of, even though they're not consciously aware, that big parts of them are missing. There is parts of them lacking, missing. They find it hard to connect with who they are. They find it hard to hold space for themselves, to have unconditional love for the self, and that has such challenging and really devastating consequences for individuals, and then obviously at a greater level for collective society. So as we reclaim the old parts of ourselves, as we see our inner beauty, as we start to realize that we are magnetic, that we are powerful, that we are whole, and we bring these missing parts back, we are going to feel so much more empowered. Our flame will start to burn brighter, our lights turn on, and again, the knock-on effect, the ripple effect just feels amazing. That is, the potential for this Venus retrograde. Now, what I obviously look at the chart holistically, and bringing in some galactic astrology, it's really interesting because this Venus Starpoint at 2 degrees of Aries is exactly opposite the Super Galactic Centre. So the Super Galactic Centre is one of the cosmic points that we work with in galactic astrology. It is kind of described as the grandmother. If the galactic centre is the mother, the kind of homing signal pulling us back to source, the Super Galactic Centre is the grandmother. So there is an element of that sort of wiser, older, almost like crone energy coming in here. And the Super Galactic Centre is like a black hole, so it is very, very magnetic. It is pulling us back to the truth of who we are, but because it's activating Libra, it is often the case when we have strong activations with the Super Galactic Centre that we have to learn about who we are through other people, through relationships. And there will be relationships that keep coming in our lives that are designed to help us learn about ourselves. Libra is also about contracts and agreements. So any interaction with others in your life is always an opportunity to learn about the self, because other people, and Libra in particular, serve as mirrors. So when we have the Super Galactic Centre activated, we are finding that there will be experiences, particularly that come through relationships, but are also parts of contracts, karmic agreements that are designed to almost challenge us, trigger us so greatly that the only option we have is to come back to the truth of who we are. And this is what the Super Galactic Centre does. It stretches us almost so far out. The Super Galactic Centre, because it acts as a black hole, creates this void. Philip Sedgwick, who is kind of the guru when it comes to these cosmic points, describes it as a cosmic womb, because it is creating this emptiness, this void that we become so chronically aware of, this emptiness that we're trying to do everything we can to fill it, because it's just so present and it makes us feel so uncomfortable. So it's nothing is ever enough, and that is kind of the energy that comes up with this. And it pulls us, it pushes us, it's magnetic, it's very forceful energy. It is energy that cannot be ignored, and ultimately it is pulling us out, stretching us out to see, to understand that we are multidimensional, that we are cosmic beings, that there is so much more to the truth of who we are. And the fact that it is opposing the sun and Venus at this time is really kind of creating this need to almost go as far as we can in order to come back to the truth of ourself, which is what Venus and the sun in Aries want us to ultimately engage with, to acknowledge, to understand. Mercury's coming back in Aries to make sure that whatever we learn during this really powerful time, that we really do understand. But because we are working with Venus in Aries as well, this is about an understanding and an acceptance at the heart level as well as the mind. So bringing in body and mind into the mix. Because it's one thing to understand things from a mental point of view, but unless you get it and you feel it and you embody it, it isn't really going to lock in and land and start to create the shifts that it is intended to do. So the Super Galactic Centre is all about alchemy. It is about transmutation. It is about transformation. It is about really allowing us to connect to ourselves at a new multi-dimensional level, on a new wavelength. And it is reminding us ultimately that, you know, whatever we seek actually lies within, and that is the inner flame, the inner light of Aries that Venus is helping us to activate and to remember and to recognize and to reconnect to. So this is about realizing that everything that we seek, you know, and ultimately that is unconditional love. Everything that unconditional love that we are seeking is actually inside of us, and it is about unlocking that. And once we've unlocked that and we've embraced it and we've recognized it, then we can start to shine it out to everybody else. So it is always about doing the healing on the self ultimately to really help heal everybody else, particularly our close relationships in this particular situation. And the fact that Venus is opposing the Super Galactic Centre in Libra, which is her home sign, is making this an even more powerful opposition. And with oppositions, just to remind us all, oppositions are about finding that middle ground. You know, the Super Galactic Centre wants to kind of take us out way, way beyond. Venus in Libra and the Sun in Libra want to make sure that we come within, and it is about finding that middle ground. So integrating, incorporating our multidimensional self and the potential and the power that that brings to us, but also recognizing that actually that is just a reflection of the power that we are. And it is about recognizing that, using the Super Galactic Centre not only as a black hole and as a portal to new understanding, but also using it as a mirror to really help us see the magnitude and the power and the potential that we are and that we have. So the other fixed stars I just want to bring in are with this happening so close to 0 degrees of Aries and 29 degrees of Neptune, 29 degrees of Pisces, we are still working with the Pegasus energy here and sheet. So this is, again, and I've talked about this star so much, and because Neptune has been activating it for a considerable amount of time, and this is about having the ability to fly high, the winged horse, the pathfinder, the seer, being able to have a bigger picture, which is what the Super Galactic Centre helps us to do, to break free of chains, of patterns, of, you know, states of mind, understanding that have kept us really locked in one way. So this is about inner freedom that is coming through the Aries now. And again, just being able to connect with a vision that is much wider, much broader, much further than perhaps we've ever considered before, to understand that yes, suffering is part of the process, and Pisces is often very closely associated with suffering and being a victim, but it is understanding the purpose of that and understanding that often suffering is like a platform to freedom and to growth and to evolution ultimately. With the Aries sort of coming in now to Pegasus, this speeds up the process as well. So the flight is going even faster, which is certainly something that I've found, you know, the energies are just speeding up so fast. It's really hard to kind of keep up, and it's almost as if we're not meant to keep up. We're not meant to try and understand what's going on. We just have to surrender and allow these waves of high energy just to come over us and to help to elevate us and to lift us up and to really support us to fly. And it is about releasing victim consciousness and surrendering to all that is that bigger picture. there is a sextile to Pluto. Pluto's at 3 degrees of Aquarius and is conjunct Altair in Aquila. So Aquila being the eagle energy, again, very linked to warrior, to bravery, to courage, to having that ability to see the bigger picture and to feel really proud and sort of own who you are, very sovereign. And the fact that Pluto is also supporting this Venus Starpoint with the sextile, deep transformation is coming through. And again, because Pluto is an Aquarius, there's an acknowledgement that when we start to change our inner world, we shift the collective, which is something else that I've been talking about a lot of late. And the other supporting star or stars in this grand minder trine, effectively, with the Sun and Venus at the top, Pluto, Altair at one side, sextile on the other side. In Gemini, we have Sedna. Sedna being the Inuit goddess who transformed into a sea goddess, or the goddess of the oceans, the sea world, the underworld. And she is at 0 degrees of Gemini, being supported by the Pleiadian star. So this is very much sort of our cosmic cousins who are very much, want us to rise up and to ascend into the 5th dimension, to embrace heart consciousness, to start acting, serving and being and living from our heart center rather than our minds. And they are sending us unconditional love and holding the space for us to do that, as Sedna invites us to explore, to let go, to surrender to the depths. This is very strong water energy as well. And this is about just letting go and trusting that as you let go and you sort of fall back into the depths, just as Sedna did, there is huge transformation taking place, and we're almost taking on a new form. So with Pluto, the god of the underworld, but also linked to transformation, to death and rebirth, with Sedna, the Pleiades, these are really, really beautiful, supportive energies, but again, just almost holding space for non-negotiable transformation through this Venus star point. And the other beautiful energy which came to me in the week, I've been working with Mary Magdalene as part of my exploration into Venus in my chart, and she has her own asteroid, which again, it just kind of came in, look it up, so I did. And Mary Magdalene, the asteroid, is at 2 degrees of Gemini at this Venus Starpoint. So she is also supporting the Venus Starpoint, almost exactly sextile. Again, working with the Pleiadian energies, that heart consciousness, working with Sedna, the very feminine, divine feminine wisdom, all that is locked away, that has been frozen in time. Obviously, Gemini is about a new level of understanding coming up from the depths. So this is really beautiful. And if we add in those two, with the Venus and the Sun at the top, and we take the Super Galactic Centre at the bottom, we have a kite shape. So it is the Super Galactic Centre, that cosmic powerful point, that cosmic mirror, that is effectively acting as the lift-off point. And we are literally rising up through the Sun, through Venus retrograde, to be able to see a new picture, a new liberated picture of the truth of who we are. So you can see why I'm quite excited about this. I just feel the potential is huge. And I feel that for us, particularly light workers, particularly old souls who have got so many lifetimes, so much knowledge, so much wisdom, but may have been hiding away, may have been concealing their light, may have been disconnected from the truth of who they are and from the power of what they are. I feel that this is a time when we're going to really be able to go back and reclaim parts of the self that ultimately we might see as they've been taken from us, they've been stolen from us, someone's been holding them, and but seeing it from that perspective really turns us into a victim. Whereas the way I'm being shown is that if somebody else has got part of our consciousness or is holding a gift that is actually rightfully ours, it is because at some level we have given consent for that. Perhaps because we felt that we weren't worthy of having that, of working with that, perhaps because we were scared, we were intimidated, we were scared of what might happen if we did come into all of ourselves. And it is really the time now when we are releasing those fears, we're releasing that denial, we are cutting free, using that Pegasus energy of all those ways in which we have kept ourselves trapped, bound, unable to rise, unable to fly, unable to move into the next stage and the next level of who we are. And this is the period and this is the time, and it feels like with the Venus Starpoint, we're starting something new, a new cycle, when we just release everything that's been holding us back. We reclaim those lost parts, those missing parts, we come into the wholeness of who we are, and when we feel whole, we can literally do anything. The world, the cosmos, the universe is our oyster. It's kind of what's coming through. Now, as Venus moves back to 10 degrees of Aries, she's then going to go into Pisces next week, and she's going to spend most of April in Pisces in retrograde. So she will be meeting Neptune before Neptune moves into Aries. She will be meeting the North Node. She will also be meeting Saturn. So this is quite a collection of energies and planets to come into a meeting with and to share energy with. And she will be meeting them in retrograde while she's in retrograde motion. She stations direct on the day of the full moon in Libra, which is her ruling sign. She will then move forward again, and she's going to meet all those energies again while she is direct. So she's definitely coming back into the final degrees of Pisces to really connect with, when she's connected with the truth of who she is, she's then going to come back into Pisces and connect with a higher consciousness, with her spiritual self, perhaps to have a conflab or convene with her higher self, and to really release and let go and dissolve any sort of final energies or constraints or barriers that she may have or still be carrying that are stopping or preventing her from connecting with the truth of who she is, and the real raw power and the purity that comes through as she moves through that 0 degree point of Aries. Literally everything is falling away, and she's getting to see herself face in the mirror the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth of who she is. And this is effectively what we are going to be faced with as part of her journey and through our connection to her. So final degrees of Pisces, very karmic. It's about stepping into unity consciousness. We've talked about that before. It's that void, that womb space from which, anything can be created. There is so much potential, but it's also about dissolving barriers that, that she may have constructed or created, particularly around the heart, because Venus is the heart, but also about our ability to love ourselves. All of that is being dissolved. And the other thing I'm being drawn to is the fact that Pisces is the water sign. Obviously, Saturn is in the water, and Saturn and the North Node are all in Pisces, the water sign. Mercury is coming back into the water sign. There is something in the waters that we need to reclaim. There is something that is in the waters that we need to find, we need to come back for. And whether that is a consciousness, whether it is wisdom, whether it is insight, there is something that we need to come back and find and get from the waters. And I keep saying that same thing, so it's obviously important. Mercury's going to come back as well, because there is information in the waters that Mercury needs to get. But ultimately for Venus, it is this it's a connection to the heart that comes through the waters. It's an understanding that the waters of life are running through our bodies, our souls, our consciousness, constantly bringing information. And it is that which Venus needs to really get to grips with. And to women, she needs to swim in those waters so that what is held in the water can be fully absorbed within her before she goes back, starts to move direct again, and moves back over that 0 degrees point where she can be completely reborn. So she's meeting with Neptune at that final degree of Pisces. She's been given a spiritual upgrade for sure. That's what it feels like. You know, gifts. Venus is about gifts and talents. So this is about the gift of our higher self, of that higher consciousness, of that unity consciousness. She's then going to meet with the North Node, which is all about our destiny, our purpose. Again, so just connecting with that more spiritual aspect and seeing that is such a gift that we are going to be carrying through with us as we move into this new world. And Saturn is more about lessons, but also mastery and wisdom and guidance and that sort of, I don't know, elder, that wise energy coming through. So Venus is going to understand as she meets with Saturn what the journey, what the hardship, what the challenge was all about, and she's going to see that actually it was all worthwhile. And as she moves back through, hitting 27 degrees of Pisces, she will be forming a square with, first of all, she'll form the square with acumen, which I talked about in my latest video, which is very much giving her the ability to perceive, to have insight that perhaps wasn't available before, and that shrewdness, that perception. But also, you know, the sting in the tail. She's a morning star. She's a warrior goddess. So she's not going to take any nonsense. You know, she's prepared to fight and stand up for herself if she needs to. The Galactic Centre, again, reminding us of that cosmic source energy calling us back home. So again, we need to make sure that whatever we are learning through Venus's journey at this time, that we are incorporating our cosmic selves and our cosmic home. Etemen, the dragon, the all-seeing eye, the ability to see the bigger picture, to walk in shadow and light, to integrate both as part of our transformation journey. Polaris, the North Star, that sort of center point from which, you know, when we stand, we can see all that is, and everything is magnetized towards us rather than us having to constantly make the effort and feel like everything is hard work. That feels very powerful. And then Betelgeuse in Orion, reminding us about the truth of our regeneration, the fact that our souls are endless and they can never die, and that we only transition, we change, we transform, but we can never lose our connection to our inner light. And of course, in Pisces is going to soften the warrior aspect of Venus as a morning star. So, you know, it is bringing that unconditional love, that compassion, that creativity through. So she is still very much in charge of who she is. She knows who she is. She knows who she is. She's really seen the truth of who she is. She's going to connect with her higher self, and then she's going to bring all that back. So she will be renewed, but in a much softer but very strong version of herself. And of course, Pisces as well, the ability to dissolve any remaining limiting beliefs about how beautiful we are, how worthy we are, what our value is, our ability to have unconditional love for ourselves. All of that is dissolving, and as we really start to connect with the absolutely amazingness of who we are, we will see everything in our outside world, all our relationships with everything outside of ourselves, start to shift and change. And I feel that really having unconditional love for the self is the key to this shift, to the ascension, to people finally understanding that if they can fully love themselves and not see and not find fault with themselves. I'm not saying that we don't have faults, because of course we do, but if we can step into that unconditional, heart-centered consciousness and have love for the self, then we won't need to fight, we won't need to compete, we won't need to be in conflict. And as more and more and more of us do that, the ripple effect of that vibrating out through the consciousness has the ability to shift and heal our world. And that sounds quite profound and quite huge, but that is how huge and profound I feel these times are. So I'm no expert on Venus, and I would recommend, if you wanted to know more, it's really worth exploring and studying and learning, and I hope that as I continue to learn about astrology, and I've said it before, I'm never going to stop. I hope that I am able to learn more about Venus and the beautiful pattern that she makes, and really understand what it is that she is here to teach us. But it feels as if her coming into retrograde in Aries, she has suddenly stepped forward and really started talking to me, and I am so grateful because she's opening up so much of myself that I know I have been denying, or sort of really just not seeing in the truth, not seeing the full truth of who I am. And when we start to do that, I have Chiron in Aries, so I do have the wound in Aries, which again has been a big part of my own path, but I really feel that Venus is going to work with so many of us to really help create some huge shifts. And this is about having a new sense of self, and a new sense of self that is so empowered that we do not have to stand or sit or lie or exist in fear anymore, because we are so sure of who we are and we're reconnecting to that. And it's beautiful. So I'm going to leave it there. Thank you so much for watching. I will be on. There is more to share. We have the solar eclipse coming up. I still haven't done my video about that. That will be done within the next few days. I will also come on and talk about Neptune in Aries, because we have that ingress building as well. Such powerful times. But just a reminder, if you do want to work with me, I have various readings available on my website. So please go and have a look, reach out, send me an email if you're not sure, if you feel drawn but you're not quite sure what is right for you, because I do bespoke readings as well. And sign up for my mailing list as well, because there will be a newsletter coming out. I'll find time to do that too, I'm sure. So yeah, wishing you lots of love, wishing you the most magical Venus Starpoint tomorrow, and sending you happy Venus vibes.